Welcome, and it's Peter's son here again, bottom right hand corner, and I'm probably getting to be like your best friend by now. And I know that if you're here, if you're watching this video, I assume that you've already seen the business presentation video on this website, and now you want to know more about making money in real estate and what you will learn in our real estate programs, and also why we are the #1 real estate education program in Australia and New Zealand and expanding into other countries shortly. In other words, you want proof that our strategies are good and the programs that we have are worth the investment that you and your customers will be investing in. So it's called Creating Wealth Through Real Estate webinar, and we're going to talk about how to find, add value, and sell for high profit, undervalued real estate investments, even if you know nothing about real estate today. So I don't care if you're a ranked beginner or an experienced real estate developer, you will get something out of this next hour and a half. Now, what you're going to learn here is the secrets of the most successful real estate investors. What do these people do? How do they do it? Also, how money is really made in real estate and by whom, and very few people actually know this one. The 4 pillars of guaranteed profits in real estate investing, the 7 biggest traps, pitfalls, and mistakes most people make, and how to avoid them. This is a biggie because most people actually, when they start investing in real estate, make some of these mistakes and lose thousands and even tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars as a result. Plus, how to find undervalued properties, the best real estate strategies to make you money, including how to own your own home or investment property debt-free in 2 years. That's right, you don't have to work for 30 years and to pay your house off. 2 years or less and you can own your own home or have an investment property debt-free. And then how to create the cash flow you need to invest in property and build your long-term wealth fast. And finally, what the next step is if you want to really get serious about creating wealth and take action on your journey to success. So just a little legal disclaimer, results are not guaranteed. Ultimately, your success depends on new market conditions, your skill and work ethic. You should always get professional legal, accounting, and financial advice before buying into any business or making any real estate investments. And by the way, we don't recommend or sell any real estate. We just offer unbiased real estate and business education only. If you want to read the rest of this disclaimer, just pause the page and just read it right now. Okay, now why are you here today? So what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? How much money do you need to live the life that you really want to live? Now, that's the question that most people, actually never ask themselves. And for most people, just okay, you can survive on $450 a week. If you want to be semi-secure, you got to have at least $700 a week. If you want to be financially independent, you got to earn at least $1,100 a week. And to be financially free, you got to have at least $2,000 a week coming in when you want to retire. Or if you want to be one of the lucky wealthy ones, then you got to have at least $4,000 a week coming in. Now, the ugly retirement facts are that 95% of Australians will actually retire on less than $30,000 per year, which is not a lot of fun, believe me. Only 4% will be financially independent, which is our goal, and 1% will be very wealthy, which is unrealistic. Ultimately, where would you rather retire? In this type of house or this one down the bottom? And I'm sure we all know the answer to that one. So at the moment, if you want to create wealth or be successful, who is giving you advice? Is it well-meaning family, friends, and your peer group? Well, they often mean well, but if they're not successful, if they're not wealthy, then their advice isn't really going to be very good for you and it's not going to help you. Then you've got people like accountants, lawyers, financial planners, stockbrokers, real estate agents, and some of these have knowledge, but the challenge with them is, of course, is that they have a vested interest in selling you their services and their products. So their advice can sometimes be a little bit biased. And then, of course, you got the financial media, the investment books, investment news, real estate seminars, online videos, webinars, and so on. So this is where you actually take charge of your own investment strategies and actually learn how to create wealth for yourself. And that's the best source of education if you truly want to be wealthy. So let's look at the facts. What is the best investment vehicle to make you rich if you want to be rich? The big success clue is that most wealthy people got rich from real estate. Now, how do I know that? Well, because 55 out of 200 people on the BRW Rich List made their money directly from real estate. And most of the other 145 richest people actually use property to hold and grow their wealth. So there's a clue for a start. Also, property creates the most millionaires. I don't know if you knew this, but up to 90% of all millionaires made their money directly from property. The Global Wealth Report from Credit Suisse shows that Australia has 1,250,000 millionaires, most of whom became millionaires because of their property values going up over time. So the houses and the investment properties they had increased in value. That's how they became a millionaire. So how safe is residential property investing? There's a saying that it's as safe as houses. Residential land and property has shown proven growth over the last 100 years, and it's underpinned by the basic human need for shelter. So that's why banks will lend up to 90 to 95% of valuation, and that's where you can get a great money leverage on your investment as well. Residential property is also low risk because 65% of the market consists of homeowners who underpin the residential property values, ensuring the least risk of loss of your capital. And the other 35%, of course, of the market consists of tenants who ensure a continuous flow of investment and rental income from your properties that gives you cash flow to be able to keep them and hold them and afford them. Now, even in times of high unemployment and recession, residential property clearance rates have always remained at around 50%, meaning that median price residential property is protected from the high volatility and risk, unlike most other investments. Even banks know it's safe. I mean, why do you think that banks will lend up to 95% on residential property to virtually anyone, whilst offering only about 50% on their own shares to people with proven serviceability? I mean, there's a big clue right there. And it is because these very conservative financial institutions know absolutely that unlike other investments, property cannot go bust. Right? Now, my business background, I want to talk a little bit about business background now because I want to share with you kind of my experiences to show you that I didn't just wake up yesterday and start doing these education programs and real estate courses and businesses, without having some kind of a track record. So I actually started out with two conventional businesses many, many years ago where I actually had a spa business where I worked it for 5 years. I worked 7 days a week, 16-hour days, and I thought that if you had a good product and you worked hard, you're going to be successful. Well, nothing could be further from the truth when you're talking about having a business. You actually have to have some skills, business skills, sales, marketing skills to be able to get customers. I actually lost 250,000 in that business after 5 years of working literally my butt off. So after that, I decided to, kind of move away from Sydney. I was living in Sydney at the time, moved up to Queensland. Started up a muffin business because I figured everyone's got to eat. And, I was making $1,300 a week, but it was still hard work making me a living, not giving me the life that I wanted. So next I've started up my education businesses, and I've been very successful in several information education businesses. In fact, I've made over $38.5 million in sales over the last 20 years. And as you can see there, I started selling from my garage, and ultimately, then I wrote a lot of books, created a lot of audios and videos on all sorts of topics from motivation, business, real estate. And there's one case study here where I turned a $129 book into a $4 million mail order and consulting and online business from that one book that I used to start sending out effects to businesses on. So my real estate mentors and experience include my parents. Both worked in a job all their lives, but retired multi-millionaires because of their real estate decisions. And they kind of worked during their job during the day, and then on the weekends they would renovate and invest in real estate, and that's how they made most of their money. And also, I was fortunate enough that my first wife's very rich dad was worth over $300 million back in the early 1980s. So this is the house that I lived in for 6 years in Sydney's Darling Point. It's worth about $20 million today. He also owned built these big apartment blocks here in Darling Point, plus quite a lot of the high rises on the Gold Coast. And basically, like in today's money, he would have been worth about $1 billion. So I was around that family for 6 years. Now, what I learned from my very rich dad, as I call him, is that money doesn't make money. Knowledge combined with action does. However, you do need money for real estate. So he didn't start out wealthy. He was a truck driver, and he was actually an operator at one of those rides, on the ferry rides, like in those amusement parks. And that's how he created the cash flow to start and get into real estate. Now, the second one is don't do the work. If you want to make real money, don't do the work, put the deal together. So don't be there digging, the foundations. Put the project together, let other people do the digging while you're making the money and putting the deals together. So that's what I learned from my rich dad. Now, I've also bought 17 properties myself, including, I started with investment units and townhouses. I've done land subdivisions, renovations, townhouse and duplex site approvals, as well as I've invested in several high-end properties. And I've been through several boom and bust cycles over the last 30 years. So I've seen real estate come and go. But over the years, I've seen the increase that these houses have actually gotten. And I've kept like track of the properties that my family and myself owned, and to see how the values have gone over the years. And that's what I'm going to share with you today as well. Basically, my decision to change my lifestyle and start a business and get into real estate had led me from this, where I was sharing a house, a room with a house with a couple of Japanese students. You can see that the lamp with no shade there. I was overweight, I was unhappy, I was depressed, I was driving this beat up old car, and I made a decision to make a change, to do something about my life. Hopefully, like you're watching this video, and you will make that decision as well. And in 6 years, I'd bought this property up on the Gold Coast hinterland. This was back in 1995. It was my first home that I bought. It had a 1.1 kilometer private winding road, undercover parking for 8 cars, and was hidden amongst 8 acres of beautiful bushland. And I had that house paid off within about a year or two of buying it. So after that, I sold that property. I bought this place on the canals and the Gold Coast, waterways there. And it's had a jetty with a jet ski and a jetty for a boat, and this beautiful staircase with the grand piano at the top there. Beautiful property. But it was a bit small, didn't have enough bedrooms, so I bought this property, which was a huge house up in the Talai Hills of the Gold Coast, just in the hinterland. And it had like 8 bedrooms and 3 kitchens, and it was a kind of house that you own it once and you never want to own it again, because the maintenance of the gardens and the cleaning was just ridiculous. So I was very happy to sell it after about 3 years, but I also renovated it, made a lot of money on it. I'll share that story with you later. And finally, today I live in this property here. This is where I'm doing the webinar from right now, this little lounge room there. I'm sitting right in there and talking to you, and it's right near the beach. And this house needs no maintenance. There's no lawns, there's no grass. The only thing that grows in that house is the stuff I leave in the fridge for too long, and then starts to grow things, But I just don't like the maintenance or anything. It's a very low maintenance property. So I've also created recently a lot of real estate books and programs, so including this particular one, which is called The Beginner's Guide to Property Development. I've also created one on how to buy positive cash flow properties, how to buy undervalued properties, the renovation blueprint, how to sell your house faster and for more money, and also how to uncover crazy renovation profits, which are the ones you would have seen in one of our business packages as well. They're the ones we include and allow you to sell as part of our business. And over 65,000 copies of my books and courses have been sold in 7 countries in the past 20 years. So I've certainly had a proven track record with selling education, also business and real estate. So that's why I shared the story with you, hopefully to inspire you that if you make a decision to make a change, then you can see your life change in ways you can't even imagine right now. So let's talk about now the 6 types of property investors and which one are you? Now, the first one I call the ignoramus maximus, or the non-existent investor. Now, they have no savings, no investments, and they don't even know that they should be investing. And hopefully, if you're watching this video, you're not in that category, because you've already made a decision to come this far. And as Mark Twain said, never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. The second level of investor is the would-be, if they could be investor. And this person actually has some money in the bank or have a rich relative that's going to die soon, but they're not doing anything. Right? So 93% of people in Australia are in these first 2 categories with 0 investment properties. And that's pretty shocking, considering real estate is the best vehicle to create wealth. The third one is what I call the passive investor. Now, this person understands the need to invest, has some funds in shares, or may own one investment property besides their own home. And by the way, these are the people that often actually make those uneducated real estate decisions that cost them thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And they may own that one property, but they didn't buy it right. They didn't buy a good deal, and they're paying for it. And only 7.1% of the population actually owns one investment property, or 1.7 million Australians. And hopefully, you're not in that position, because I want you to be what I call the smart investor, or better, right? And this person makes their own investment decisions. They're not sold some property by marketing, and they build a portfolio of properties and possibly other investments like blue chip shares. And only 0.0% or 17,000 Australians own 5 or more properties. And again, it's not that difficult to own 5 properties, but very few people actually ever take that path. And then, of course, you've got the professional investor. They own 10 or more properties. They're actively seeking to buy more. They use vendor finance, creative rental and buying strategies, and also they keep expanding their property holdings. So they're always looking for those positive cash flow properties they can acquire and hold without costing them any money. Then we've got the number 6, which is the opportunity creator. Now, this is the person who creates the opportunities that other people invest in and makes the most money. These are the people that build companies and list them on the stock market and sell the company shares as opposed to buying the shares. Right? They're the people that start their own franchise chain rather than buying into one created by others. At this level, you're in the 1% of the population. So how do you join this group in real estate? I'll tell you in just a minute, but let me tell you a story about Richard Branson here. He's popping the champagne day, and this is when Virgin Blue was first floated on the stock market. But I don't know if you knew that, but because he was the originator of the opportunity, he made $100 million when his company floated, Virgin Blue. But he's since sold out of it, and the investors that bought the shares had to wait years before the shares actually went up. So when you create an opportunity, you're actually building profit into it for yourself. And so who does this in real estate? Who are the movers and shakers? Well, developers are what we call the opportunity creators of the real estate world. They're like if you heard of Jim's Mowing, the franchise, well, they're like the Jim from Jim's Mowing, right? They're the masterminds and beneficiaries behind the development projects. They come up with the idea, they secure the property site, they manage the project, organize the finance, liaise with the architect, market the property, hire the builder, and hopefully make that 25 to 40% profit at the end. And of course, I will share with you who pays for that, that profit. So first of all, let's have a look at who are these developers. Who are some of the most famous ones? Well, we got the gentleman you might have heard of, Harry Triguboff, aka High Rise Harry, also known for his Meriton Apartments. That's what his company is called. He's worth $10.23 billion. He's Australia's richest man. Now, I don't know if you knew this, but he started with a milk run and taxis as his cash flow business. His first real estate project was actually just building a block of 8 units in Tempe, Sydney in 1963. He actually made money on that first development. And then he didn't do anything for 5 years until 5 years later he built 18 units in Gladesville in Meriton Street. And that's why his company was called Meriton Apartments. And since then he has built over 50,000 apartments and townhouses and kept 4,000 units to rent out for cash flow and income. So he's been smarter than a lot of the developers because he keeps a lot of the properties to rent out and get cash flow during the downturns when the real estate market is not so good. Then there's somebody that I actually know about as well, John Van Lieshout. Now he's worth 1.49 billion, and his parents came as immigrants to Australia from Holland, right, with their 12 children. And John started that small furniture store you might have heard about called Amart. And he actually sold out of Amart and got into developing property and almost tripled his wealth again through real estate. So that's how he made most of his money, is through real estate, but he had the cash flow from his furniture business to get started. Then we've got Lang Walker, worth 2.31 billion. Lang again started business in the late 1960s, a plant hire and earth moving contractor. That's how he got his cash flow. Then after moving into property, the Walker Group started developing a number of small office buildings, low density residential projects in southern Sydney. And then the business expanded to develop the larger residential and industrial projects in Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney. Another billionaire. So what is the big secret of all these real estate millionaires or even billionaires? Well, the one thing all successful real estate investors have in common, in my experience, is that they all had a cash flow business to fund their real estate investing and lifestyle. Right? A cash flow business. It gave them the money to be able to buy the real estate and also prop it up if the market was not so good, and they need to keep it and hold it until it started to go up again. The 7 key strategies of real estate millionaires are these that I found. Was that they started small, and you start small and build your way up as you get more experience. So obviously start with projects that you can manage and comfortably handle. Secondly, pick the best growth city and suburbs and buy the right property with potential. Cities have different levels of growth at different times, so make sure you pick the right areas to invest in. Also deal in medium-sized properties because that reaches the biggest buyer market, right? You don't want to be dealing with the upmarket buildings to start off with, certainly, because that market is very volatile. Also aim for creating income and positive cash flow in all your properties. That way you can hold the properties if the market turns against you. And also look at how you can get development land at a good price or for no money down using options, which is one of the strategies I'll share with you later. And always buy for the land value because land appreciates and buildings depreciate. So that's why units are not a good idea. And that's why the developers who are millionaires and billionaires, they create units. And the people that buy the units, they might make a little bit of money, but they're not making the big dollars because they don't have the land content that, the development where the greatest increases are. And the last one is create the deal. The best deals are made, not found. Nobody is going to hand you a brand new property that's going to make you rich. You've got to put that deal together. You want to be the one creating those developments, not the one buying the developments. It's a bit like you don't want to be the one pushing the lawnmower in Jim's Mowing, from a Jim's Mowing franchise. You want to be Jim selling the franchises to other people. So likewise, you don't want to be the one buying these end products. You want to be creating the deals. And that is the key area I'm going to talk about a lot in this seminar as well. So how is money really made in real estate? This is what most people don't know, and you won't get told about who is making money in real estate by most of the educators that are out there, most of the real estate professionals who are making the big dollars. Now, if you look at these 2 buildings, let's just analyze these 2 buildings. Duplex on the Gold Coast and a 1 per floor, 3 apartments block in Sydney's eastern suburbs. Well, first of all, someone had to subdivide the land. So the person who subdivided the land originally into retail lots and put in the roads, the sewerage, the curbs, the walkways, they made money on that subdivision and putting those infrastructures in. Then the person who builds the building on top of the land, they have to get the development approval for the building. They got to hire a builder, manage the project. They make their profit on the land. So the person that buys the finished building is paying for those 2 profits already. Now, once a building has been around for a while, then the person who renovates the property, as it gets older, they make a profit because they're renovating the property. They're adding value. And then you've got the person who redevelops the land as it's rezoned. So what was a 1 dwelling site now becomes a duplex site, a splitter, or a high-rise development potentially, area. And again, whoever redevelops it and gets the approval on that will make money on that and will make the profits on that. So then, of course, on the last one, you've still got the selling agents and government. So you've got the real estate agents and also the stamp duty and so on that you've got to cover. So they're the people that made money, but who pays for it all? Well, what I call the uneducated buyer. And these are the people who hope that the finished property appreciates enough to pay for all the profits that have been made to create that. They're like the person who buys the shares in the company. They're not the person that puts the company together. And plus, they got to cover all the commissions and costs associated with buying it and holding it until it's sold. So is this who you have been in the past? And most first-time investors actually lose money on those deals. By the time they cover the commissions and all the costs, they're way behind, right? They're not making money when they buy the property. They're actually losing money. They have to wait for the market to go up quite substantially before they'll even recover their investments back. So here's an uneducated investor case study. This is an example of what most people do and what you want to avoid. An attractive and very overpriced but very cleverly marketed property with high guaranteed rental yields. That's how they get you in with these rental yields sometimes, right? It was sold off the plan to an uneducated interstate or overseas investor who settled in 2007 for $1,135,000. As you can see, the marketing for the property was beautiful. A beautiful, beautiful duplex, beautiful entrance, beautiful pool. It was even opened by, I think, the mayor or the premier of the state. Now, the uneducated investor though gets into trouble after the rent guarantee expires and actually tries to sell after 2 years for $900,000. So they're already losing $235,000. But the property was on the market for a year, and then it was sold by the bank as a mortgage in possession fire sale for $453,000. Imagine that you paid $1,135,000, and then it was bought by somebody for $453,000. And it was resold again in 2015 for $462,000, and today it's probably worth about $490,000 as the market improves. Now, how do I know all this? This is the data you can get from a place called RP Data. You can subscribe to it, and that tells you all the history, the sales history of every property in Australia. So who made the money on this property? Well, I can tell you it was the selling agents, the marketeers, it was the solicitors, it was the person that developed the project. They all made a lot of profit. But who lost money were the buyers of these properties, because they bought what they thought was an opportunity to make money. But the people that created that opportunity made a lot of money, and of course this was totally overpriced, this particular development, and the people really got burnt with that. So the next area you can make profits on, of course, is on, as I talked about, is land. So if you subdivide and or develop, you can make big profits. So splitting one block costing me $120,000 into two at a cost of about $60,000 plus holding costs gave me two blocks that sold for $249 each. And this is, you can see that there's the block in Gladstone. And it was approximately $300,000 profit in about 4 years. So there's big money in subdividing the land. Now, there's also big profits made on the development approvals. If you get a development approval on a typical property in the areas where, of course, you're allowed to do that, then you could add up to 25 or 50% more to the value of that property, depending on how many villas or units you can build. And there on the slide, you can see some of the ads for sites that are already been approved for developments. Now, you can also sell a property with a development approval and make a profit. So once you have a DA approval on a property, you can advertise it like these people have done, or run your own ads, where you actually, tell builders and developers that you've got a site for sale and what it's approved for and so on. So let's have a look at a development approval case study. This is an actual case study that actually, happened. And this is at 1435 Ferntree Gully Road, which in Queensland, which sold for in 2014 for $340,000. So there you can see the block of land sold for $340,000. With DA for two luxury townhouses, it sells just 15 months later for $605,000, or $265,000 more, and about $180,000 net profit after you take holding costs and the DA approval costs into account. And of course, if the person that bought the site then builds those two townhouses, they can make a profit again. And who's paying for it? The end user. So again, you don't want to be there. So if you wanted to make money, you can just have a 5-year DA option profits plan. So you basically use an option strategy I'm going to teach you later, and then you do development approvals on blocks of land or properties where they've got potential for redevelopment. And here's what that could look like. If you do just 2 option development approved projects per year, and each project returns just $150,000 profit per development approval approved, and each project has upfront costs of $15,000 each. So that's what it costs you for the architects, the engineers, and council lodgement fees and so on the development approval. And only 6 out of 10 of your projects get DA approval, because obviously some of them might not get approved. Well, this is what it would look like in profits for you, right? You do 6 of these DA approval sites at 150,000, 900,000. Upfront cost is 6 times 15,000 is 90,000. Net profit is 810,000. Yearly profit 162,000. Return on investment 900%. Right, then of course you've got to actually take off the 4 that weren't approved as well. But that's still a very, very sizable return on your investment. And some people are just doing that. They just take an option on a block of land, get the DA, and sell it even before they've had to settle on the land or the property. There's also big profits on renovating. So you can make really big money with renovating, but it's tougher and more work, and it is actually less profitable than developing. It's never going to be as much money as if you develop something, or some of the other ways that we teach you. The rule of thumb, say, on cosmetic renovations, which is what everybody kind of raves on about, how easy it is that if you spend $1, then you should make $2 to $2.50 profit. So if you spend $100,000 renovating a property, then you should sell that property for $200 to $250,000 more than what you paid for it. Now, the renovation goal is that the goal of the renovation should be to enhance the visual the visual appeal in line with the modern trends and increase the rental and capital value of the property to prospective buyers and or renters. So they'll pay more to buy or rent your new look trendy property. Now, my biggest renovation project, where I spent $400,000 and made almost $600,000 profit, was this property that I showed you before in Tala. That's what it looked like when I bought it. It was an aging property that I bought for $1,150,000. It had 3 kitchens, 8 bedrooms, 7 bathrooms, as I already mentioned. And then I transformed it into a modern as-new home at a cost of approximately $400,000 and sold it for $2,185,000 just 4 years later. So that's where I made my biggest profit on renovation. Now here's an example of how I transformed the bar and billiard room. It had this beautiful big snooker table there and this ugly looking green bar and these raked ceilings, these brown raked ceilings. And basically, see, we painted the ceilings white, changed the bar, didn't change the floor. So it was kind of, it was all cosmetic renovation. But on this particular property, it had 45 doors. So we spent $3,500 just on the new door handles because there was there were so many, doors and had so many rooms. Now here's the toilet that was next to the billiard room. Before it had this ugly 80s fittings and paints, and then we turned this into this modern, look at a minimum cost of about $800. That's all it cost, just for the vanity, the mirror, the taps, the lights, and a bit of labor and so on. Then this was the outside barbecue area and kitchen. Before it was really ugly barbecue and preparation area. Now obviously when it looks like this, that's why the property is sold for $1.15 million, because no one likes to see that when they're buying a property. But look what it can turn into. For about $6,000 or $7,000, we transformed it into this beautiful kitchen, and it was all German-made cupboards and everything. Put a fridge in there. Inside one of these cupboards there was a fridge in there, so it was a really beautiful area afterwards. And then here's the master bathroom. Again, it wasn't like too bad before, I guess. I mean, the marble tiles and the bath were really nice, but the black vanity with the swan taps was a bit of a kitsch kind of a thing. So we changed that, and this is what it looked like. Just cosmetic only. Again, new vanity, taps, silver, shaft frames. Most of these items were bought on sale. There's nothing structural that's really been changed. It's all cosmetic stuff. So that's what the bathroom looks like after, and I'm sure you'll agree that it's beautiful. So renovating in Australia, the land, as I call it, of reno opportunity. Let me give you some more tips on this. The fact is, Australians love property. We have one of the highest ownership of property per capita in the world. But fact two is there's a lot of really ugly properties, right? And like the one that I bought and made all that money in. So if you look at this, what does the average person see here? They see an ugly property, right? What do I see? I see an opportunity to make money, and I made $57,000 on this property with just some cosmetic renovations. So that's how you can make quick money, just doing some cosmetic inside, new carpets and paint. Now, the proven winning real estate strategy, if you want to be a renovator, is to invest in older, cosmetically ugly but structurally sound properties in established high growth and high demand areas, like this one that my family bought in Sydney's eastern suburbs in Bondi Road. It was a rundown terrace used as a boarding house, and then visually improve it to appeal to the buying and renting market. So we turned it into a beautiful 3-bedroom family home with a granny flat and my parents and I made 190% profit in 5 years. So literally tripled our money in 5 years. And of course, that property, as it moved, we bought it for 55,000, sold it for 150,000, but now it's been renovated again, and there's money to be, made with every value-added renovation. And now it's this, it looks like this, the new colors and everything, and it's really modern inside. And it last sold for 1.8 million. So you can see properties do keep going up, and the trend is there. And certainly I've kept, if you buy in the right areas, and obviously Sydney, Sydney is a good area to buy, and those high population growth areas are the best ones. So the two types of renovations that you can do is cosmetic, where you just do paint, carpets, landscape, fast, low budget, low risk, and usually low profit, just a kind of a buy and flip. And then you got structural, where you move walls, layout is changed, rooms added on. It takes time, it's more costly, high risk, but it can also be high profit. So that's the difference, between the two. Now, the four types of renovation properties that you're going to come across if you're going to do renovations is you got what we call a renovation quickie. There's nothing wrong with the property. It just looks a bit shabby inside. Maybe needs a new fresh paint, new carpet, maybe a bit of a landscaping tidy up. Then you've got the hidden gem, which is an older property that might have seen better times, needs a new kitchen, bathroom, as well, as paint, carpets, and new fittings to make it shine again. Or you've got the structural cripple. This one has structural problems that need fixing. Now, expensive and necessary work that won't make it look better. So make sure you don't buy properties like this, because structural work doesn't make you money. And lastly, there's the wreck, which this one's just had it. It just needs to get the demolishing crew in and scrap it so you can start again. So there are the four types of properties. Now, which type of renovation is best for you depends on your time, your ability, and your determination, I guess. But if you're what I call the weekend warrior, so you only just dabble in it on the weekends, you should only do those quickies or basic cosmetic renovations. If you're a bit more of a serious renovator, then you can do the quickie or the hidden gems, more extensive type of renovation, and you probably have a team of tradespeople to help you and some experience when you get into those. Then you've got the professional renovator, who of course can tackle those hidden gems and also the structural cripples. Right? And then you've got the builder. They can fix or build anything. So all types of properties are just a piece of cake for them. So if you're not a builder, obviously, don't take on the rack. Or if you don't know anything about renovation, then just take on the simple jobs to start off with and then move your way up. Now, the renovation industry and the renovation education industry is booming. Right? It's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's been popularized both on TV shows, magazines, in seminars that people hold on renovating. If you've seen TV, you got the blog, house rules, the backyard blitz, 5-day flip, auction squad, flip or flop. There's like all new ones coming up all the time, right? So they're all about, the 24-hour makeovers, all that sort of stuff. So there's lots of those properties around. Magazines like the Australian Handyman, the Grand Designs, the online magazines, renovatingmagazine.com.au, completehomes.com.au, and many others. So you can tell that people are interested in the education, because if they weren't, all these shows wouldn't be there, because the producers wouldn't produce shows unless there was a demand for it, and obviously advertisers paying money. So there is a big demand for real estate education knowledge, which is what our course also obviously teaches. Now, what do you need to ask before you buy and start doing renovation? These are the questions you should know before you start any renovation. How much work is actually involved in doing the renovation? How long is it going to take? How many days, weeks, or months? How much work will you do yourself, and what will you have to outsource to contractors, and at what cost? And lastly, does this property fall within your high growth city, suburb, and other property selection criteria that I'm going to teach you in just a second? Now, you need to do your homework before you buy. There's a saying in real estate, you make money when you buy the property. So never rush into anything. There's always another property, another bargain just waiting around the corner. So let's talk about the 4-pillar 100% guaranteed profits real estate strategy. This is something where if you get this right and you get these 4 pillars in place, you are literally guaranteed to make profits on every real estate investment you will ever make. And I know that's a big claim, but you'll see exactly why it's true when I show it to you. So here's our guaranteed for-profit pillar real estate investing success strategy. The first pillar, if you make sure that your property is in a high growth potential suburb or city, you're already on the way to making money. In other words, pick the areas where you're going to have capital appreciation, where there's a high demand, population growth, shortage of supply, where you're going to see some growth just from the property increasing over time. Secondly, is you look for good value properties. You look for undervalued property. Do option, buy a property under option, which I'll explain to you how to do later. Make sure that you get a good deal within those suburbs. So don't buy an overpriced property, in a suburb where there's high potential for growth, because you're still going to lose money. So you got to get both of these right. So if you get a good deal, and then if you add value by doing a development approval, doing a renovation, subdivide, or develop the land and the property, then again, it's another pillar that's going to make you money. So now you got three things working for you to make money. And lastly, if you have an effective sales and marketing strategy, you can sell it for more and you'll sell it faster. And this is one of the other things that we teach, how to sell your property faster and for more money. So these are the four pillars where if you have them in place, you're guaranteed to make profits. Now, this is the most risky real estate investing business model. And this is what most people actually do. Most real estate investors rely on just one profit growth method to make money from their property. Usually it's capital appreciation, right? Or renovations. You say, oh, I just got to buy an old house and renovate. But you got to buy the right property at the right price in the right area to make money out of the renovation. So this is way too risky, relying on just that one method. Now, here's how you ensure your real estate profits and your success with our multiple profit growth system. Right? Look what happens when an investor uses the real estate for profit system. So first of all, we pick the right area where you're going to have the capital appreciation, picking the right city and suburb. Then we make sure we buy the discount so we get a really good deal on the property. Then we might also use an option. Then we can add value with the renovation or get a development approval for the site or develop the site or sell it. Then you sell it better, you sell it faster, and you just keep putting in these profit pillars underneath to literally guarantee your success. Well, you will guarantee if you get those four right, the four basic one right, you always have to make money on every property. So that's what you want to look for. Now, obviously, it takes time to develop those skills. And yes, you can also lose money in real estate, but it's when you haven't got one of those four pillars in place, or you've missed something out, or you made a mistake, especially the first two. They're probably the key ones. So this is what I learned from my very rich dad. If you buy right, you make bigger profits when you sell. I know it's obvious, but see, most people jump into real estate with these emotional real estate decisions. They get emotional about the project or the development, and that's when you're going to lose money. And he also taught me that major cities follow in cycles. So if Sydney's had a huge run and Melbourne hasn't, you can bet that Melbourne's going to have a run, or Brisbane or Perth to catch up with Sydney. So cities in Australia and around the world tend to follow cycles unless there's, like certain factors that might influence it that we're not going to get into on this video. But certainly in Australia, the major cities follow a certain cycle. And if Sydney's already had a run, Melbourne's still going, Perth's already been and gone, then you've got Brisbane's going to be moving up next. And then you've got even areas like Hobart and some of the regional centers that move up as well because they become so cheap compared to the major capital cities, and investors start moving a bit further out. So when you're trying to select the best area to invest in, whether it's for development or renovation or whatever, right? Look for proven and established high growth cities and suburbs, first of all. Secondly, look for strong rental demand with 5 to 6% yields because that can allow you to hold the property during the downturns or the slow times. Also, look for areas where they're close to transport, major amenities, things like schools, shopping centers, and so on. And you don't want any obvious drawbacks too, like easements, noise, flooding. Like you don't want this situation here, which is the Brisbane River, and it's 1 in 100 years flood, which of course you can't always avoid. But you don't want to be in flood-prone areas and so on. Now, the objective of picking the best growth city and suburb is to maximize capital growth. So make sure you invest in areas that have at least 20,000 people or more. Otherwise, you're not going to have the population there for renting your properties and so on. And understand who lives there, demographics. So if it's just an area that's been built up because of some mining activity, be careful. We'll talk about that later because a lot of people have been burned. Also, as where possible, buy close to the CBD within 2.5 to 4 kilometers. And obviously in Melbourne and Sydney, you might have to go further out because those cities are very expensive. And as the urban sprawl spreads, you might have to go further out as well. And where you can, stay in the median price range, the 290 to 590,000. In again Sydney, Melbourne, you might have to go a little bit higher, but try and stay in that median price range because that's where most of the buyers are, most of the renters are as well. And also look for a growing population base where the population is going to be driving demand for those properties. And the other thing to watch out for is the large infrastructure projects and business projects in the pipeline. So, where something's happening, like new hospital, new schools are coming in, because, like a new, on the Gold Coast, we've got the new, the tram line. So obviously that brings people into areas where maybe they couldn't easily get into before, and the areas around there start to grow and become more valuable. Here's an example. This property went from 1.6 million in 2012 to 3.5 million in 2016. And this is what actually happens when you buy in a high potential capital growth area. There's been no improvements done to get this increase in value. And Brett is actually one of my students who bought this property, and he reaped this massive capital windfall. And it is really even better than winning the lottery. I mean, almost $2 million in 4 years. It's like $500,000 a year. Where do you earn that sort of wages? And of course, it's his principal place of residence, so he doesn't even pay any capital gains tax on it. So it's all profit. Now, this is another example where a growth area gets a buyer 300,000 more in 18 months. So before it was a rundown house near the beach, it sold for 953,000 in March 2014. After, it's still a rundown house near the beach, but it just sold for $1,250,000 more because it was in a high growth area, and it's almost a $300,000 increase in just 18 months, which is a very good capital gains. Here's another one. This was a house it was actually a nice house near the beach. It sold for $1,950,000 in July 2015. As soon as the owners bought it, it was an elderly couple. They realized there was too many stairs there. They didn't like living there, so they put it on the market, and it sold within 3 months it was sold, but it took another 2 months to settle, and for $125,000 more in 3 months. So again, they actually made money on that property. This is an example that my family actually bought this property in Bellevue Hill. We bought it for $176,000, and 11 years later we sold it for $1,020,000, which is $844,000 profit, or 5 times more. And all we did was spend about $40,000 or $50,000 on the renovations. There you can see my dad actually and the builder there doing some additions to the property. It was kind of the rundown house, the worst house in the best street with harbor views. Now, what exactly is the $853,000 lesson that I learned from my parents, my poor parents as I call them? The big lesson is, it's not the renovation that makes you the most money. It's buying the right property in the right area in the first place. That's what makes you the most money. The renovation just adds another level possibly to the value. In our case, it didn't add anything. It just made it a nicer house to live because we lived there for like 11 years. So obviously it just made it a better property to live in. It's the kind of the worst house in the best street principle. Now, that same property, by the way, after we renovated it, that's how it got sold for $1,020,000. With development approval, it sold for $1,620,000 just 2 years later. So somebody made $600,000 more just by getting development approval for those 3 apartments, the 1 per floor apartment. You can see there, that's the plans, on that property. Now, you can add even more value, and the next person that bought it, they built those 3 1 per floor apartments, and now it's worth over $5,900,000 and at least another $1 million in profit. And of course, if you now go in and purchase one of those apartments, then you're paying for everybody's profits. You want to be the person that puts these deals together. That's why, my parents did well on that property, but imagine if they would have kept it, right, and actually got the DA, developed the property, and then they would have been, even better off. But obviously they didn't know that at the time. They didn't know those strategies, so they just were happy to get the capital gains on the land. And that's the key area, is buy in the right area. And they just made an absolute killing on that particular block of land. Here's another property that my parents and I own. It was in Kensington. We bought it for $65,000, sold it 4 years later for $160,000, $95,000 profit. It was just an old rundown house on the main road. And 4 years later, at about $20,000, it's now looking like that, and it sold for $160,000, $95,000 profit. But now imagine if they would have kept this property, then this is what happened today. It sold for $1,900,000 back in 2011, and it's now got an ultra-modern renovation inside. You can see that, the beautiful kitchen and all that. It's all modernized again. So it's obviously worth even more money now because it's close to the city on a big block of land. So again, the real estate does keep going up, but you can add value to it at all the stages of its growth, and you can capitalize on also those real estate cycles. So once you put those 4 pillars into each property that you buy, you can literally be going from one profit to the next and multiply your wealth exponentially. So let's talk about now the real estate mistakes, the traps and pitfalls, and how to avoid them. Because a lot of the times when people get the idea of investing in real estate, they get really excited about the potential of making money in real estate, which is absolutely true. Most rich people get rich through real estate. However, if you don't get the right education, if you buy from the wrong people and make one of these mistakes, then literally it can set you back years or even decades before you recover from it if you're an average virginer or if you're not making a lot of money in the first place, right? That's why you want to have good cash flow, because you can also pay for the mistakes you might make. So here's the biggest pitfalls. This is a really good section. Make sure that you got a pen and paper and take some notes on this one. This is really important. First of all, this is probably the biggest trap for most rookie investors and real estate buyers, and that is these property education seminars and websites that are popping up everywhere, right? And before that, it was obviously ads in the newspapers and telemarketers calling you and so on. Now, the promise is that they educate you on the importance of real estate investing in securing your future wealth, which is perfectly fine, perfectly legitimate, perfectly true. But then they help you and make it really easy for you to buy ready-to-go properties. Now, who do you think is making all the profit when you buy a ready-to-go property from someone that's got you all excited about why you should invest in real estate? Well, the trap is that the people getting really rich are the high commission marketers, the company solicitors, developers, and finance people. It's a really bad idea, right, to buy from the people that educate you on making money in real estate, to buy real estate, finished real estate. Because let me ask you a question, right? Would you ever sell your property cheap? Whatever story anybody gives you, if they can really get a higher price somewhere else, are they going to give it to you at wholesale or whatever discount they tell you they're giving it to you? Are they really going to do it? They're not. Come on, you wouldn't sell your house cheaper to Joe if Bill gives you another 50 grand. There's 2 buyers. One wants to give you $50,000 more. Who are you going to take? The one with $50,000. Right? It's the same thing with these guys. So the trap is this, and there's an article I just picked up the other day. Property investors are being duped into buying overpriced off-the-plan apartment by scam artists. Now, this was one of those examples. 40 townhouses were actually sold in off-the-plan sales, and they settled in 2007 for $1 million plus each. Most of these 40 were resold or repossessed by the banks and sold for $400,000 or less in the next 2 to 9 years. So 9 years later, they're just worth, maybe $100,000 more now because the market has moved a little bit, right? But it took that long, and most of the people that bought the original apartments, they lost big money on them because the properties are still worth nowhere near what these original buyers bought for them. They're worth approximately $400,000 in 2015. So this is the trap, right? This is the trap on buying, these finished products from marketers, right? And you don't want to be the person doing that. You want to be the one that creates these developments, not the one that buys them. And there's actually a saying here that, property investors are being duped into buying overpriced apartments off the plan by advisors, inverted commas, who earn kickbacks as much as $35,000 per sale from developers, and accountants, financial planners, real estate agents, marketers masquerading as buyers agents, and so-called advisors are all in on the scam. Well, it's only a scam if you're silly enough to buy it. I mean, they all want to make a profit. It's just you're paying for it, right? So I wouldn't necessarily call it a scam, but basically you're paying too much because all these people are making big profits on selling you that property, and you don't want to do that, obviously, if you want to make money out of real estate. The other one that's a trap is the guaranteed rental returns. Again, the promise is guaranteed rental returns for a fixed period, usually 2 to 5 years. The reality is you get an overpriced property that'll be hard to rent for anywhere near that rental yield after the guarantee expired. It's a very bad business decision. Here's an example here. There's a website that's offering 3-year rental guarantees or no property management fees for 3 years. Or another one here that says, finance at 8% guaranteed rental income, first year's rental paid in advance. Obviously, this was in the times of higher interest rates, but the reason developers do this is where the trap is with guaranteed rental yields, right? And I want to really get you to understand this. If the developer is struggling to sell units or apartments in a flat, falling, or oversupplied market, they offer you the property that's probably worth $350,000 at the original price of $400,000 with a 3-year rental guarantee of say 6% or $400 a week. So now, if the usual market rent was just $300 a week, the cost to the developer is the difference between the $300 and the $400 because he's going to have a tenant in there, right? So it's cost them $15,000, or $100 a week over 3 years. Now the extra profit they make is $35,000. There you can see landlords warned of rental guarantee pitfalls, right? And you're stuck also with a property that's worth less, and now you can't cover the interest after the rent guarantee period is over because the rental drops. You're not going to be getting that rental. So it's a smart business for the clever real estate professional. It's a really good way to sell properties, but it's bad business for you, right, the buyer. Right, so what if your property is not selling? But let's say you developed something, or you bought a property and it's not selling, the market is flat, and you're struggling to sell. Well, guess what? You actually should offer a rental guarantee or furniture package or a vendor deposit finance or rent-free periods. Basically, look at what the professionals are doing and then do the same. But the problem with most people is they don't know how to do that. They're not educated enough to be able to do that. So the reality is that you'll find more people who may want to buy your property, right? And so if you're doing it, then it's a good business decision for you. But it's a bad decision if you're the one on the buying end of it, because you never give rental guarantees unless there's some problem with selling the property in the first place. Otherwise, why would you want to guarantee the rent? What if the tenants are not there, or what if they're bad tenants? You wouldn't take the risk. So the only reason developers do that is because they're struggling to sell their projects. Also, buying in marginal areas, another trap. Right, the promise is real estate marketers offer investors really high rental yields and capital growth due to housing shortage, often temporary, in mining towns, for example. So the reality is the shortage is filled with new developments, the mining boom slows, the mining companies accommodate their workers in their own camps and or staff, and house prices and rents plummet, and you're stuck with a very bad investment, right? Very bad decision. So beware. And I'm sure you've read in the news lately what's happened to the mining towns. This is the trap. Here is an article, property market drops by 50% in Queensland mining towns, and that's in the good ones. It dropped even more in some of them. The median value of a home in Morbana, about 200 kilometers west of Mackay, where there was some mining activity, they've fallen 66% in the past 3 years, right? And the house prices dropped from 751,000 to 251,000, according to the figures in RP data. So imagine if you were the investor that bought at 751,000, even with guaranteed rentals, right? You would have been absolutely, having a bloodbath right now. And the trap again is that the rents have also plummeted at the same time from $1,500 to $200 a week if you can find a tenant. And that's why you should only buy in proven growth markets and not speculate by buying in these marginal areas like mining towns. Median price properties in major population centers and capital cities are the safest. And I've been saying that for years. This is where you should always buy. And certainly, you don't see, Harry Triguboff, Australia's wealthiest developer, building in or buying in mining towns. He doesn't build that. He builds in the major capital cities and the population centers because he knows that's where the money is. Okay, the other trap or mistake people make is they believe the agent's sales pitch, the real estate agent's sales pitch. Now, the promise is that you may be told you can split the land or the zoning is good for duplex or units, and that's all good. And obviously agents, they have their role, and you should actually get to know agents and be friendly with agents, but do your own research, right? Because due to not mention council requirements, the development could be hard to get the approval for, or it will not be financially feasible, so you could still have a bad result. So be careful, because there's been cases of misleading and deceptive conducts by individual agents within the industry. So always do your own due diligence and check on the facts that you're being presented. Another one is buying sight unseen. The promise is a great property that's going to make you a lot of money, but you have to act fast. It looks beautiful on the outside, but the reality is there's problems with neighbors, land is hard to build on, or any other 1,000 reasons why you should not have listened or bought without inspecting the property. Bad idea. Always, always, always inspect the property. Also, not doing a building and pest inspection. The promise is save money as it all looks good, and the owner says they had one done before and it was all good. The reality, there is water problems, you can't see, termites have had a feast, and the foundations are sinking. Again, bad idea. So make sure you get a building and pest. Here's some building and pest inspection horrors. Houses that are full of termites. Metal frame building that was bolted down to nothing. Frame of a building supported by untreated timber support, which of course is going to get eaten by or rot and eaten by termites. And the list goes on. It's basically a $500 insurance policy that you're taking out. Another trap is having too much debt, not enough equity. As the market is heating up in some of our cities, people get themselves into debt because the market is booming, interest rates are low. So people try and buy as much as you can with as little deposit as you can. Property will go up and you'll make thousands. That's what all the marketers are promising you. The reality is interest rates do go up at some point. Market slows down. Your rent doesn't cover your interest and expenses, and you have to sell at a loss or the bank repossess. Again, bad decision. Here's a case study. According to news.com.au, Simon and Shane James are $2,300,000 in debt, and he actually says banks are loaning too much to people who can't pay it back. They invested in apartments in a remote mining town, which now they can't fill with tenants because the mining boom has gone kaput and slowed down. So now they can't get tenants, and of course when applying for the loan, they also put down their family home as a security, and now they have to sell up and declare bankruptcy, and it's a bad decision. Another trap is buying off the plan. The promise is buy today at today's prices and an exciting new development with a small deposit, make a profit, maybe even sell before you have to settle. The reality is interest rates go up, market slows down, banks change rules, or the developer simply cancels the contract and sells for more if the market keeps booming. That's happened in Sydney, where the developer tore up the contracts of all the people that bought off the plan and basically resold the apartments for 50% more than what he originally sold them off the plan. So the real estate trapping off the plan is, rising interest rates, falling market reduces value, like the global financial crisis example, paying too much when you buy because the whole thing is overpriced, the developer goes under, so they don't even finish the building, banks' finance rules change, and you can't rent the property due to oversupplied settlement because everybody's trying to rent the property at the same time. Here's another story. Off the plan apartments carry high and rising risks, and it was in the papers or wherever. So okay, now let's talk about the 3 sacred D's of undervalued property investments. What are they? If you want to buy the right property undervalued, what are the best chances of doing that? You're certainly not going to get it from a brand new development from a developer, right? Unless they've gone bankrupt or something and it's the bank selling it. They're never going to give you an undervalued bargain. The 3 Ds of getting a property bargain are these. Pay attention, because these are the only ones that actually work. Number 1, death. The owner has died and the heirs can't wait to get rid of the property, split the money. That's one. If you can get these deals, again, that's why you got to know agents and where you find these, right? So that's the first one. Second one is divorce. The once loving couple now can't wait to go their own ways. They want to sell and cash out now. Again, you can pick up a bargain there. And number three, desperate sellers. The banks are closing in because they have overcapitalized. Owners can't afford to keep it and they got to sell. So again, you can get a really good deal on that property. Now, here's an example of a divorce bargain. Divorce sale sold for $460,000. And smart sale, 15 months later, it got sold for $855,000, $400,000 more. Now, I know this property, it sold in 2002. It was a divorce sale, and if you see, there's my name on it, Peter Sun, because that was the house I had to sell, and the person that bought it off us sold it a year later, as you can see, in August 2003 for $855,000. I can tell you I was not happy, but I had a divorce happening. I had to sell it quick, and this is what happened. So divorces are great for picking up bargains. Another one is desperate. This property, $1,160,000. It was bought for $425,000. It was purchased using our system at a mortgage in possession bank auction, and it created almost $140,000 in instant equity at the moment, the way the property market is going. So, and it was one of our students, one of our business owners who actually bought this property. Now, deceased estate is another one. There's bargains for smart investors there. You can find a listing of all the mortgagee and deceased estate sales in the National Mortgagee and Deceased Estate Database website. They list all the upcoming auctions and opportunities. You want to become friends with agents as well in the areas you're looking in, because they can give you advance notice on all the good property deals. So make sure that you know the agents as well, because they can guide you to those undervalued properties. Now, the next thing I want to cover is property options, what I call our secret money-making strategy. Now, what is an option? Well, simply said, an option is the right to buy something, but not an obligation. So it can be the controlling interest in a developed property or an empty block of land, and it consists of a fee paid to the property owner in return for giving you control of the property for a limited amount of time for a small upfront and non-refundable payment or fee. So it pretty much works like stock options as well, if you know anything about buying the stock market options. The world's most famous option was the Commodore Hotel next to Grand Central Station in New York. The asking selling price for the soon-to-close Commodore Hotel was $62 million, and it was on the market in New York for a very long time. Now, Donald Trump, who you must have, everyone has heard about by now, I'm sure, he might already be president by the time you're watching this, offered $70 million for a 2-year option. So he offered them more money than what they were asking for, but he wanted 2-year option on whether or not he was going to actually buy that property and give him the money. The next year, he signed a partnership agreement with the Hyatt Hotel Corporation, which didn't have a large downtown hotel. And then he worked out a deal with the almost bankrupt New York City Council to revamp the hotel and use the new glassing over technique to modernize the exterior and rename the Grand Hyatt. The hotel was popular and an economic success and made Trump one of the most well-known and controversial developers in the USA. I believe Donald Trump made something like $32 million on that one deal. Now, that's a hell of an option, isn't it? I mean, you could retire on that. He just kept going, of course, and build more wealth. So how much does an option cost? Well, the cost of an option can vary, and it's anywhere from $1 to thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, and even more. All depends on the deal. It all depends what the length of time is, the contract price, and also what you're planning to do in the option period. So why would someone option it rather than sell it to you outright is often what people ask me. Well, there are many reasons, but they may include you offer them more than the asking price because you only have to pay this after you've increased the value of the property. Right? That's the first reason. Second one is they're having trouble selling the property. So they give you an option because they're struggling to sell it. They might have inherited the property, they're not doing anything with it. So they're happy for someone to come in and offer them this deal. Or they might want to participate in your project and partner up with you on the development. So they can be like a partner in it with you. Or you might offer them a profit share in the final development, so they'll give you an option on it. And there's really many other personal, business, and emotional reasons. It doesn't matter what the reason is, as long as they're obviously willing to accept your proposal and willing to do the deal with you. So what can you do under an option? Well, once you have an option agreement, you can secure the DA, the development application, you can improve or renovate the property, or you can do nothing. In a rising market, this could also make you money. But having said that, it's a lot harder to get an option in a rising market because most people aren't stupid. If they're reading in the papers, on the TV, it's all about real estate's going up, 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 everything's going crazy. Well, they're not likely to give you an option for 2 years for $10, and lose all that capital increase on the property. So, it kind of works in certain markets better than in others. But the ideal situation is where you not only add value to the property that you have under option, but also you can generate cash flow while you're securing the DA, the development application, on improving the property to increase the value. So you want the property to bring you cash flow, because obviously it's not costing you anything because you got the option on it already. So here's an option profits example. This was a rundown 56-year-old unit block that has had a put and call option placed on it by a company. It's in Burleigh Heads on the Gold Coast. Subject to DA approval, the owners will reap a $21.8 million windfall, approximately 50% more than its value in a normal sale. So in other words, if they try to sell as individual units, they'll be worth approximately 50% less than with this DA. Now the 3,035 meter square site can have a 15 to 20 level high-rise built on it based on the current zoning. So the developer really runs little risk before the DA is approved, just the price of the option, which is not going to be a lot. And once the development is approved, the site could be worth $25 million to the developer, so he can actually sell it and make that profit. But obviously they've put the whole deal together. So they can make you a lot of money with little risk, these options. And I showed you the example before about getting the DAs, and in this particular case, you make like $3 or $4 or $5 million on the option. So let's talk about now how to make big profits with development side. These are like the opportunity creators. This is where you make the most money. And this is the most exciting strategy that you're about to see. Adding value to your property. So, there's one way if you get development sides is you don't even have to own the properties next door to you. If you can combine several houses into one development block with a development application, you can double the value of the property. There's an article again in Sydney's papers, how to double the price you and your neighbors get for your house. It's zero risk and zero cost to you, especially if the DA application is funded by the developer. Now, this was actually 9 neighbors in Lane Cove, Sydney. They combined their 9 properties of 750 meter square, size land together to create one 6,103 square meter super site. And this almost doubled the value of their homes because they now had a development site with, DA potential. It just doubled the value. The homes were worth $1.5 million in normal sale value, but sold for almost $3 million each, subject to DA approval, which was a mere formality because it was already, zoned for that development. So that's how you can get to own your own home debt-free in 2 years. I'll tell you how you can own your own home debt-free in 2 years or less. This is it, right? You get together with your neighbors in the right area, and you can, double your money, and then you can buy a house somewhere for cash. There's also another example, 5 homeowners in Janali. You can see the block of land there. They had homes worth $1.1 million if they sold individually. They decided to combine the properties and sell them as one lot again. This was in the Daily Telegraph that I picked that up from, and sold together as a 4,143 meter square developer block. They get $12 million. 5 homeowners. Right, they just made $1.3 million each more. Imagine that. They just made $1.3 million. Right, that is how you get to own your own home debt free. That's smart, neighborly, cooperation. And it's because they pooled their houses together, right? If they would have sold individually, they would have never got that sort of price. So here's another way to make big profits with developing. How to own your own home or investment property debt-free in 2 years or less. Would you like to know how you can do that even without working with your neighbors? All right, I'm going to tell you. Here's how to own your own home or investment property or 10 debt-free in 2 years or less. First of all, find a development site in a good high growth and demand area. So pick a good area that's going to have potential growth and find a development site that's suitable. Build, doesn't have to be a big one even, like those other ones. Just something that can build 4 or 5 units. Just a 700 square meter block sometimes is enough. and build 4 or 5 units, villas or houses, and make a conservative 30% profit margin. So like this particular block of land that I bought in Labrador, it cost $600,000, and now there's 4 townhouses on it worth $2 million with approximately $400,000 profit in the development. So the profit you make on the first 3 or 4 townhouses at 30% profit margin allows you to own the last one debt free. So in other words, if you have a block of apartments you build, let's say like 8, if you do an 8 apartment block development, then you can probably keep 2. That's your profit. And they're debt free. You don't have to work for 30 years. It takes like 2 years to put that project together. That's how you own your own home or investment property debt free in 2 years or less. So why be a developer? Well, developers make the big money, They're the ones that turn up in a brand new Mercedes or a BMW or a freaking Lamborghini like I'm driving over there. They're the ones that live in those amazing waterfront houses and penthouses, and the ones that also make the final $10 million bid at an auction. They're the movers and shakers of real estate, as I've already said. That's where you want to ultimately get to, even if it's on a smaller scale. Is there money in developing real estate? Well, I've already showed you some of the examples, but look at this fellow I just read about the other day. What caught my eye was that Holly Valance's billionaire husband buys her a $53 million yacht despite her getting seasick. So she doesn't even like boats. And he just gives her a $53 million, a gift for a birthday or wedding present or whatever. Now, the funny thing is that Nick was a failed accountant, right? Nick Candy, his name was. And he started in 1995 with a $6,000 loan from his grandmother to renovate a £122,000 house with his brother. That's only 21 years ago that he started in the real estate business. They sold that first property for £172,000 18 months later and made £50,000 on their first project. Right? Now, between 1995 and 1999, they renovated units and worked their way up the property ladder to becoming developers and giving up their day jobs. So again, this works in any market, any city. This is why I'm showing you this example. These guys are actually in England, right? The high point in 2011 was selling a Hyde Park flat for $136 million to Ukraine's richest man, Rinat Akhmedov. Right? And they developed what is the most expensive development in the world for apartments. And this could be you in 20 years. It's only 21 years ago that they started. He's now a billionaire. Now again, 20 years later, real estate. I tell you what, you're not going to make this working for a boss. You're not going to do this working in the sandwich shop on the corner, buying a sandwich shop. You're not going to do this buying a lawn mowing franchise. You're not going to do it in any other business normally unless you're like a Mark Zuckerberg and you found like something like Facebook. If you're really into computers, you create some amazing freaking program that is like the next Google or Facebook if you think there's that potential. But I tell you what, there's a lot more people making money out of real estate. That is the message that I want to get through to you through this seminar. Right? And if you want to add value with developing, it's not that difficult. You just got to find a site and assess its potential and profitability. Do your homework. Right? You've got to do your homework first. And this is what we teach you how to do in our programs as well, how to do your homework. Then secure the site. You buy, lease, option it, partner up, get a DA, develop an application, a building application, and on construction certificate, so you get the approvals. Then put the plans out, a tender, appoint a builder. Then you build it, you do regular inspections, you do site meetings, you do progress payments as per contract terms, which we teach you how to do. And then you get certificates and approvals signed off, and then you settle and celebrate. And there's your money. Now it's a simple, like 6-step process. You got to obviously learn the steps, but you're not doing all the work. You got other people doing the work. You're just putting the whole deal together. Right? You're not there digging the foundations. You're not there drawing up the plans. The architect does that. You're not there dealing with the council. The architect and the surveyors do that. They go there with you on your behalf. Right? And you don't build a thing. The builder builds it. So it's just putting it all together. So what will be the best development to suit your experience, budget, and time? Well, sometimes you can buy a site with an existing DA. That makes it a lot faster. So you buy something that's already had a DA approved and you just build a building. Or you just get the raw site. You get the development application for the site. Obviously, there's more money in that then. Or you can renovate an existing property, or you can even strata tile an existing building. Right? So you could do an existing building where you might do a splitter or add another, a house on the back, or you can strata title if there's a building with a few apartments. So there's a few different options that, you can do. Depends on your experience and how much money you have as well. Here's a very simple way to make $549,000 in 2 years as a developer. And again, it's taken from an actual case study. And this is how you can own your own $500,000 home or investment property debt-free in 2 years again. So Brad and Tracy Welton's duplex project did just that, and there you can see the write-up on it in the papers. And basically, they took this block of land, which they bought for $400,000 at an auction, empty block of land. You can see the size there, 791 square meters. Oops. Now they built the two modern duplexes. One sold for $986,000, the other one for $790,000 each. And the land cost them $400,000. The building cost them $800,000. The sales value of the two townhouses was $1,776,000, which gives them a $576,000 profit in 2 years. Less some costs, and you've got your $549,000 profit. And that was actually written up in the newspaper here in the bulletin. So that's how you make the profit. Now, if you're the person that buys the townhouse, on the other hand, how are you going to make money? If you now get sold that townhouse, right, and you're looking to become a real estate investor, look, I don't care if you want to buy this kind of property to live in. If it's going to be your own home, that's fine. Then you buy what you love, where you want to live. But if you want to make money out of real estate, if you want to be a professional, if you want to be a professional investor, if you want to generate cash flow, then you don't want to be buying this duplex. You want to be Brad and Tracy, who create the opportunity. That's what I'm trying to teach you in this webinar. And the number one secret to success in real estate investing, and this is what all the successful people, bar none, that I've met who are successful possess. You want to know what it is? It's a winning attitude and an unshakable desire for success. You got to really want to be successful. Whether you join our business or buy our real estate course or not, it doesn't matter. Right? Even if you buy the course, but if you don't have a winning attitude and you don't have a desire for success, you still won't be successful. Nothing would help you unless you're prepared to help yourself first. It's a bit like joining the gym, and you pay the fee, but then you never turn up because your muscles hurt and you're too lazy. Right? You got to get in there. You got to do the work. You got to build the muscles. You got to build the physical muscles, and you got to build the financial, emotional muscle to be successful in the real estate business, and also in the real estate education business that you're looking at right now. The number one secret to success is that winners know what they want, and they never quit till they get it. Now, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who flew down from Melbourne or wherever to have a photo with me, he told me that you got to have a big dream. You can't listen to the naysayers who tell you it can't be done. And he said, you also got to work your butt off. That's how he said I became good in, his bodybuilding and his movies and becoming governor of California. See, the pain of success is that the pain of change is temporary. It may last a day, a month, or a year, but the pain of quitting is eternal. See, a lot of people say they want to be successful, but they don't want to be as successful as they like watching TV or doing all the same stuff they've been doing their whole life. So initially, when you're learning new information, when you're learning how to be a real estate investor, developer, when you're learning about the real estate education business, there's things you got to learn. There's a little bit of mental pain, if you like, and anguish. But if you go through that, you then come out the other side and you become successful beyond, you can become successful beyond your wildest dreams. If you do nothing, then you're going to stay the same forever. And it just doesn't, nothing changes in your life. So if you're still here with me, by the way, if you're still watching this, I want to congratulate you. You've stuck with me this far, right? And I really appreciate you wanting to learn and wanting to become a better person. And you're probably here for these three reasons, right? You want to make more money and have financial security. Right? You want a better lifestyle and you want to have more time freedom, and you are seriously looking for that vehicle to get you there. So what are the two reasons why most people don't make more money in real estate? Do you know what they are? And usually people say money and time, right? Well, the number one problem is that actually most people make emotional or uneducated real estate decisions, so lack of knowledge, right, which often limits their real estate investing profits or even loses their money through bad decisions. This is the number one problem. People go and buy that property, overpriced property, from people that are making the profits, and then they are stuck with it, and it takes them a long time to get their money back, or they lose it or whatever. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that you need money and cash flow to buy property and build your real estate wealth, and also to be able to hold on to your properties in slow markets. That's why Harry Triguboff owns 4,000 rental apartments, because he wants to get the cash flow income, because he knows the real estate market is not always going up. I've seen him hold on to some building sites for 8, 9, 10 years before he will build the next apartment, because he's smart, right? And you want to be like the smart people in real estate are. So you need the money, you need the cash flow. The good news is that this has really created a hungry market of motivated customers for our real estate educational products, because people are starting to realize just how much money they can lose if they make the wrong real estate decision. And even by watching this webinar, I'm sure that it's opened your eyes to some of the traps that are out there in the marketplace that maybe you kind of wondered about, but you never quite knew how it all worked. So hopefully this has opened your eyes to all that. And this is why the real estate education is booming, right? People like John McGrath, Difna Bohol, Dolph Terus, John Fitzgerald, there's Harry Triguboff, and all these educators like Mark Rolton, Anthony Robbins, Donald Trump, obviously, he's now heading for bigger fields, but Robert Kiyosaki. What did all these, I'll tell you the one thing that every one of these people had in common with you. Do you know what all these people had in common with you? Yeah, they were born naked and screaming. That's true as well. But they had one other thing common with you. At some point, they started with their first property deal, right? They had to start somewhere with that first property deal. So, if you're in that position, this is where they all started. So this is where you got to start as well. And the real estate education is booming. And the big advantage these educators, what one big advantage these real estate educators have over you that you don't have, that they have? And that is that they generate huge cash flows through their education business to fund their real estate investments. And that's a big one, right? Because the cash flow allows them to invest in those properties and also to pay for their mistakes. And I can bet you that everyone's made mistakes. There's no one that's successful that hasn't made a mistake. So you need that cash flow to prop up, your investing, and also some of the learning experiences as you're going through them, right? The great news is that you can now learn how to make profitable real estate decisions, avoid your traps and pitfalls, because that's what we teach in all our training and our programs. And you can also generate the cash flow to be able to make those profitable real estate investments that you're learning about, just like the other educators and marketers that are out there. See, what is my goal? Well, my goal is firstly to educate you, our customer, on how to retire financial free and live the lifestyle you want in 10 years or less, plus give you the tools and the vehicle to be able to create the massive cash flow to implement the first goal above there. To give you the cash flow so then you can start investing and create that lifestyle that you're looking for. Now, we do not sell or recommend any property. I've said this before. Our goal is to educate people on how to make better, more profitable real estate decisions, not to sell you cleverly marketed and mostly very overpriced properties. And I'm sure you've already seen that from the examples I've given you here today. So what is your goal? Do you already have all the money you need to buy as much property as you want? And if you do, then you're doing something right. And I'll say to you, keep doing what you're doing. Just maybe, you could still learn some of the strategies that we teach and have a look at our programs just to help you make wiser investing decisions in real estate. Or secondly, where I believe most people fall into the second category, is do you need more cash flow to be able to actually implement the real estate strategies you already know or you're going to learn in the future? Because a lot of the times what's holding you back is you don't have the money basically to get into the real estate in the first place and the cash flow to be able to actually do those things that you want to do. So what is the ideal cash flow business if you need the cash flow? Well, You want to sell something that's got a high profit margin product and service, something that's got big profit margin so you can cover your overheads, and you got plenty of profit to work with. It should target people that have money and are willing to spend it. The real estate market is one such market because people that are interested in real estate, they have money to spend. Also use the new technologies effectively to get new customers and keep selling to existing ones. If you saw the previous video on this webpage, you'll see that we teach you how to use the new technologies and how to market and get customers and generate leads and so on. Also, high leverage potential. Again, if you want to know more about that, you can watch the other video, but you want something that's got leverage where you're just not making money from your own efforts. And lastly, the lowest possible fixed overheads and marketing costs to maximize your profits. I mean, you don't want to be in some retail shop where you got to spend thousands on retail rents and things that don't really make you any money. You want low overheads where if you get a customer, you sell a program, you can make a lot of profit. And that's why our programs have up to 83% profit margins. Now, there's a couple of people here. They're not actually in the real estate business, but they are in the education business. They do education on eBay, Matt and Amanda Clarkson. They got started in the education industry as my clients, students, and employees. You can see Matt and Amanda here at my trade show. You can see my picture there in the background at the trade stand, and they're selling, my products at one of the trade shows that I used to do for my business programs. Also, John Gian, owner of Knowledge Source, Australia's biggest seminar education company, started as my student years ago. And he's the one that brings out people and promotes people like Difna Boholt. He's brought out Mark Rolton, Donald Trump. He promotes Mark Rolton, Bob Anderson. He's brought out Anthony Robbins into Australia. He's a very, very successful marketer. And and he's certainly been got his start with my business. And he's at one point he made $12 million in like a period of about 18 months using the strategies that he learned from the course that he invested in with me about 20 years ago. Now, these guys are educating and making money, right? All these guys are making money out of education. So why not you? Why not generate the cash flow by helping us, becoming a partner with us and helping us promote the programs, when we give you all the tools, all the website, and becoming a partner with us and tapping into this multi-million-dollar market that some of these other people are doing. Right? Our goal is to basically create 100 real estate millionaires in the next 5 years. We want to do it fast, and we want to find a lot of people who want to be successful. Our vision is that we provide the most effective real estate strategies, business training systems, and products in the world. We want to be the best in the world. And our mission is to bring together the people, which is yourself, the tools and the systems that will help to make your real estate investing and education business a huge success. So to combine those education and the investing together. Now, will you be our next success story? Look, maybe not. I can't guarantee that. Ultimately, your success does depend on you. But if you're motivated, if you love the idea of real estate investing to secure your future, if you want more cash flow and a better lifestyle, then just do it. Click the button on this website, enter your details, or contact the person who sent you here and get started on your journey to a more prosperous financial future. Or if you haven't watched the other video on this website, watch that video because it talks all about the products that we have, the profit margins, how the money is made, the support and training that you get, and it gives you more details on that. And anything else you want to know about me, there's some other tabs here on top of the website where you can see, about Peter Sun, details of our products. So you can get a lot more education to make an educated decision, but don't put it off. Right? The future rewards the brave. And when I took the step to make my life different and took the step to change, start my own business and put everything into it, that's when the rewards started to come. And I would like to be your guide and your mentor on this journey. And hopefully one day, you're going to look back on this whole experience, and hopefully you're going to be thanking me like John does and some of the other millionaires that I've mentored over the past years. And you're going to be the next success story. So pick up the phone, call that person, get started today, and I hope to see you at my next training. Whether it's real estate or business, it doesn't matter, right? I'll be there and I'll guide you and mentor you on your journey.